Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's just a little bit before 1 today. Today is FOMC announcement day, so this is pretty typical, very low volume, not much movement. Everybody's waiting for the news, and back in the old days when there were surprises, Fed announcement could create a huge spike in either direction, very volatile. But lately, the Fed announcements have been, pretty tame, to be honest, compared to what they could be. But I see a trading range, a tight one here, between 642 and a quarter to maybe 648 and a quarter. So maybe about 6 points. Just not much happening. And you don't want to be in the market right before the Fed announcement because you never know, there could be a surprise. So it's really too late to take any more trades. So I'm going to do the chart lesson, wait for the news, and just kind of see what happens. I doubt I'll trade any more today. It's just been a slow, typical Fed announcement type day, slow, choppy, rangy kind of day. You could see the overnight highs and lows. We tested that to the low side in the overnight, then we tested it in the high side just after the open, and we came back and tested the low side again. And it looked like we were going to try to go higher here, but we made lower highs, so we may be going to come down and test this again. And I saw this channel going up, a little spike in channel going down, and now it looks like we're trying to form a channel to the upside. And my guess is if we're just going to hang around in this area right here. This kind of seems to be the neutral point, so to speak, I guess is what I would call it. The fair market value, where because we seem to be hanging around in this 1645, so people are seeing that as fair value, and we're having a hard time going higher or lower than that for right now. So we'll see what happens, but let's talk about the trades I saw real quickly, and then I'm going to wrap this up. And I got a lot of comments about yesterday's video. Glad you enjoyed it if you did. I don't do more of them because it takes me away from my trading, and it's hard to trade and record video at the same time, and it's just a real struggle, and it disrupts your thinking and so forth. And but I enjoyed doing it, and I'll probably do some more of them, but I probably won't do those all the time as much as people would like me to. It just it takes me away from my trading, so for that reason I don't do them very often. But let's talk about the trades and go from there. And again, when I came in, I was a little later today. I didn't get here till about 7:30, and we were in all this right here. It looked like we had a channel going up, but this was the first real bounce we kind of had off the trend channel after I came in. It was kind of a notice that we tried to go lower once there, we tried to go lower again, and we bounced right off of that. And look at that big bullish bar. What I did was when this broke higher, I dropped a limit order in there, and I got filled on this bar. You could have waited for this one. Either one of them would have worked, but it's so big, you would have had to want to use a limit order. And I showed you how I dropped those in yesterday after the trigger. But it's doubtful this one would have come back and gotten you. And it was a quick scalp. Of course, it comes right back and takes out any runners. On these choppy days, a lot of times I won't even use runners because you just tend to get stopped out on them. And so I just scalp out and wait for it to come back and look for another entry or a different trade. And but this was a second entry long. This is, notice the high here, pull back, first entry long, pull back, second entry. It's a nice bearish bar, but again, I used a limit order because it didn't close on its high. There's a lot of overlap right there, so when it broke higher, I put my limit order right there, and that's what I usually use is the closes if it does like that, and it comes right back, and it just enough to get me in, and then it turns up. Easy scalp, and I just scalped out on that one. I gave up on the runners when it looked like it was just going to be choppy and rangy. Then we got stuck up in this. I drew this one in green. There hadn't really been a break of this trend channel yet, but a lot of times on range days, all you'll get is a little breakout and then a pullback that retests like that, and then it turns down. But this is a double top. Um, you can see there were two tries to go higher. First move up, pull back, second move up. It was a little aggressive, so I drew it in green. But if you saw it, and it's the same place we had resistance all day yesterday, so there's a good chance you can get a scalp out of this. And there's the odds are we're probably going to the other side of the trading range, and that's exactly where we went. It moved pretty good right through here, and then it got really choppy down here, and but it chopped its way all the way back down again, and now we're slowly chopping our way back to the high again. But my guess is the Fed news is going to come out before we ever reach this high based on what I'm seeing here. So, but anyway, there's a short there. I always draw the aggressive trades that fit our rules but are a little more aggressive in green. But this is a short right here. So long trades are in blue, good short trades are in red. And but then you had a failed attempt to go higher. This is kind of a breakout pullback short. You can see there's a thin spot right there. I like this for the second entry short off that high. Quick, easy scalp. Again, it comes right back. But then you get a second entry short. Notice this. First leg up, pullback, second leg up. That's a two-legged pullback to the EMA. You probably didn't have the channel line in place yet. Turns back down. Again, it didn't close on its low, so drop you a limit order in there. Even if you used a stop, I think it still worked easily. This was a pretty good move down. Took it a few minutes to get going. Made me nervous for a second, and I got to thinking, well, there's a lot of overlap, but that's the way it is on days like this. If you sit there and watch, you'll miss a lot of trades, but you got to make sure you're reading the price action right. That's really the only way to do it. And then guess what? Another two-legged pullback with a nice reversal bar. Again, it took a few minutes to get going. And but notice this: if you didn't enter right there, when it bounced back up and turned back down, you got another chance to enter. It's getting a little more risky here because there's not much room before here, but that's kind of a breakout pullback short, a two-legged pullback to the EMA, a little long trap there. They trapped it. They tricked some people right there going higher, and you got to think we're coming down to test these lows and maybe even this low. And that's exactly where it goes, down here where you're finding the strong support. And so again, no runners, but an easy scalp. I didn't like coming long out of this. It's just too choppy. There's a little trap here. You didn't want to go short here for sure with all those matching lows and only 2 or 3 ticks to work with there. So it did bounce out of here, but it's not a very good setup, so I didn't mark it. There's really been no break of that little trend channel coming down there. There's like a spiking channel there. This was a first entry. It's way away from the EMA, but notice this is kind of a reversal pattern with a higher high. So I didn't like going short, but I wasn't really sure about going long either. This was the first entry. Then by the time you got your second entry, there's all this overlap again. It's choppy. Odds are it's probably going higher. And if you did enter here, as long as you kept your stop where you're supposed to, below the signal bar down here, it was a good trade. But I think it was a dumb entry. I didn't like it at all. There wasn't really any channel or trend line to verify yet. But then if you draw your trend line off those closes, then you get another test and it turns up and it almost closes on its high. So when it breaks higher, I actually use a stop here on this one. I wanted to use a limit, but I felt like we had a little trap there, and you can see it spurted up pretty quickly. I can't remember if a limit order would have gotten filled, but if you took the trade, you would have, and you used one, you'll know if it worked or not. But I felt like it was a trap because it looked like it was going to be a long trap because there's a failed second entry long, but you don't want to be going short here after that trap and a higher high, and this is still a higher low, so you can't be going short right there. So you're better off to wait and see if you can't get a long, maybe it's not going to end up trapping people to the short side, and that's what happened. They fooled all the longs and got everybody probably to flip-flop, and they probably just whipsawed everybody. But I like that trap right there, and you can see it moved pretty quickly, and then there's really been nothing since then. There's a bounce off the trend line again, but again, that's one, we're probably going higher here. and it is kind of a second entry on a bigger picture. Notice pullback, first entry, pullback, second entry, but there's so much overlap, and it was so close to the 1 o'clock hour. I wasn't interested in taking it, but when you made that little trap there, you might have considered going long. But it wouldn't have worked if you would have hit that little trap right there. Again, you'd be trapped on the wrong side. And there's the news warning about the Fed release coming up here at 1 o'clock. And but that was all. By that time, it's not worth entering right now because you don't know what's going to come out in that news that could spook the market or make the market elated and it takes off straight up or straight down. So you're better off just sit tight, let the news come out, see what happens, and or either call it a day for today, one of the two. Sometimes there's some really good movement afterwards, but I'm done for the day, and I'm just going to finish the video up here, and that'll be that. So, but just not much happening. You got to sit tight, and you got to wait for you got to be able to. You got to read this right, and you got to read the price action right, and then you just got to be patient because it takes. I mean, it took forever to work through this area right here, but it finally worked through, and then it worked on down. But it took forever, and then coming back, you see it's continually working higher, but look how slow and methodical it is, and you just have to be patient and know you're reading it right and you're on the right side. And the right side from here has been up, even though it hadn't been strong. It's been up. So needless to say, that's pretty much it for today. So I'm going to wrap it up. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next